This is the backstory of the human experience of reality, how it came to be. From growing up swearing the one thing I would never do is to be a doctor, to playing a major role in establishing a new medical specialty, a new medical paradigm, to discovering the missing blueprint of how humans work, that is, the human experience of reality. This is the 10-minute backstory of how this paradigm and its foundational book came to be. I grew up swearing the one thing I would never do is to be a doctor. But it wasn't because my dad was a doctor. I actually never saw my dad practice medicine in a clinical setting. Ever. And with his chosen pursuit of hedonism and the inevitable divorce, I only saw him about once a year anyway. I swore I would never be a doctor because the kids in school, whose dads were doctors, were mostly egotistical jerks. I didn't know what that was all about, but no thank you. I did much of my growing up with my grandparents. They were home and made sure I was fully supported through life at substantial cost to themselves and despite the chaos in my parents' lives. In college, I seriously considered pursuing psychology until I took Psych 101 and learned about all the crazy ideas and theories that Freud, Jung, and others had. It was obvious that kind of psychopathology would only make people worse. And I really wanted to understand and help people, especially in the deeper parts. Spring break my second year, I left college. No plan, no job, no nothing. Except a burning desire that would not be ignored to understand life, the spiritual dimension, and figure things out for myself. The Christian culture I had grown up in was not satisfying the hunger deep inside. This crazy venture was actually the best thing I ever did. A year and a half later, I was very providentially and specifically directed back to the college I had left. It was not what I wanted to do. I had no reason to be there. But I was interested in health by this point in time and decided to take anatomy and physiology from personal interest. A couple months in, and I was then very providentially and specifically directed to become a doctor. Which was no small matter for the free spirit that I was, and given my lifelong aversion to this one profession. When I told my physician father of my decision on the phone, there was a long pause, then a wry laugh. "I'm sorry." Cramming 4 years of medical school prerequisites into 2 years, including taking the MCAT admissions test while still in the middle of 2 of the 4 year-long required courses being tested, I began medical school in less than 2 years and with no undergraduate degree, which is very rare. My mission had become clear. It was time to get on with whatever I was meant to do. I'd come to believe in a whole-person version of health prior to medical school, and when it came to residencies, preventive medicine was as close as one could get to this in conventional medicine. I had been taught evidence-based medical practice. If the science shows something to be the case, then that is what we do for patients, and everything is good. It made sense. So the way to change things was to get good science done, and things would automatically be what they could and should be for patients, right? So I would go into research, and I prepared to do this. In these residency years, I again seriously considered getting a doctoral degree in psychology to better help whole humans. The medical perspective seemed quite sterile and largely devoid of those aspects that make up the breadth and depth of the full human experience. During my internship, I had an epiphany. Talking with one of the chief residents while working in some back workroom in the large medical center, this small, very sweet Indian woman confided in me that she was really struggling with depression and was on antidepressants. She wistfully recalled how she used to be so happy. She used to so enjoy riding her bike in the fresh air and sunshine, and now missed it greatly. Living out her miserable existence within the walls of the medical center prison, with no time for not only physical activity, but also no time for even adequate sleep. I went down to the medical center library and searched to see if there was any science yet on depression and exercise. The search immediately spit out at least 50 studies, demonstrating a clear, strong association, and how exercise prevented and treated most common depression. Neither medical school nor residency was teaching me this science. They certainly were not using it for patient care, and certainly not for physician care. The evidence-based medicine we were pretending was not reality. It was an illusion one must pass through in pursuit of what was real. In the years following residency, I found myself one of a handful of faculty who would meet around the idea of how do we bring about needed change in healthcare. One of my colleagues in this group founded the beginnings of a professional association for lifestyle medicine, addressing the lifestyle cause and potential cure of most modern chronic disease. A few years later, and the organization was going down for the last time, which is when I got deeply involved. This was way too important to let it go down the drain. I spent most of the next 5+ years full-time, much of it without any pay, building the organization to be professional, credible, vibrant, and about changing things for the better by professionally representing and providing treat the cause care to patients. We built out a world-class advisory board with former U.S. Surgeon Generals, top scientists, and the foremost leaders relative to lifestyle medicine. We built relationships with other professional medical organizations and began establishing professional standards and formal designations within the field. We were solidly founded upon all the science. It seemed that the next thing that needed doing was teaching providers and institutions how to make things work financially doing this better kind of care of lifestyle medicine. But it didn't take too long for it to become apparent that healthcare providers didn't have a grasp of how different lifestyle medicine really was clinically. You can't just take the same backward dynamics of typical healthcare and swap out broccoli for a pill on a prescription pad. It had to actually be about the whole person, and providers didn't know how to do this. Back to the drawing board. We needed to go deeper. We needed to create whole new frameworks for how to do this kind of person-centric clinical care. My personal practice became the laboratory for a fundamentally different kind of healthcare. We were dealing with the issues of why do we do the things we know are bad for us and not do the things we know are good for us? How do we change our manner of living to be more supportive of life? Where are the models of how humans work to know how to best engage for positive change? I couldn't find any. All this science and no truly functional models of how it all worked. Wow. Understanding how humans worked again became a prominent theme of the journey. Seeking to create healthcare truly about patients led to my participation in Stanford Medicine X conferences for a number of years. These conferences were quite unique. They brought together activist pioneering patients and their patient-derived solutions, with leaders in healthcare like CEOs of health plans or state Medicaid programs. Innovators from all around the world came, and the entrepreneurial brew that is Silicon Valley. From talking with all manner of innovators and observing the innovation efforts and what worked and didn't, I had another epiphany. Everyone was trying to change the healthcare system, and they never could. What exactly is a system by definition? Well, it's a set of parts all working in synchronicity for a common purpose to produce a common product, right? Well, is that what we have in the United States? For those of you not in the United States, that is absolutely not what we have. So functionally, what is US healthcare like? Well, there's the pharma space, the insurer space, the hospital space, the medical device makers, equity investors. It's very much like a multi-ringed circus of the old days. Everyone has their own ring, doing their own thing, and they're kind of all under one big tent, but they're all doing their own thing for their own benefit, and it's very desynchronous. It is chaos. A functioning healthcare system in the United States is a mirage. Trying to change a mirage is not a good use of life. We needed to move past this illusion and get on with finding the reality so we could effect tangible change. There were multiple tech startups, most lifestyle related, that I worked with to varying degrees during this time. But I watched what happened with success. Success was defined as the exit, meaning if you could sell your widget to the highest bidder and ride off into the sunset with a big fat wad of cash, that was success. What about the patients? What about whether or not the widget kept actually helping them? And who was buying all these innovations? Well, it turns out the existing for-profit big boys, including big pharma companies, were the ones buying up all the innovation. And these entities exist for one purpose and one purpose only: ever-increasing amounts of profit. The more they could control of the healthcare circus, the more profit they would make for longer periods of time. They knew how to milk the chaos. Building successful widgets or healthcare elements in the normal manner within this space to try to change things was an illusion. my good work would just end up feeding the beast. We needed to go deeper to find the bedrock reality that could enable healthcare for patient best good. So, what is behind this for-profit thing of healthcare, which is actually very new in human history? Humans have historically always helped each other from compassion, from a place of shared humanity. Why do we sometimes do such selfless, altruistic things for each other, and at other times use human suffering for selfish, mercenary purposes? Why do humans do what they do? When does it work and when does it not? During all this time in my journey of seeking bedrock reality to build healthcare as it could and should be, my personal journey in seeking to understand the reality of life, humans, the divine, and so forth continued. Why do we fight and kill each other? Why do we have such different versions of reality that create so much conflict? What is life really all about? What constitutes a full, satisfying, fulfilled life? How do we have it? And why is it so elusive for so many? With another input of providential direction, the arcs of my professional journey and my personal journey merged and embedded themselves into the ground right in front of me, into the bedrock. The bedrock was human nature, not a theory, but how humans actually work. The bits and pieces had been building over the years, sometimes in large leaps, sometimes little by little. One of the primary frameworks that was in my hand at this point in time was the rough gem that was the answer. It needed cleaning, cutting, polishing, but it was the bedrock I had been seeking. My journey had come full circle. I'd started with seeking to understand and help whole humans. The answer of how to truly help my fellow humans was to be found in understanding the reality of how humans worked, whatever the application. Understanding how humans work, and secondarily why they don't, is the most basic truth there is for all things human. The bedrock of our experience of reality. But it had been missing. It is missing. Whether designing healthcare that actually works for humans who need it, or in any other realm of life, or for any particular application, everything is a matter of how we experience our existence. We need to use and build with a blueprint for all things human. This is the recipe for real success. It is with a tremendous sense of privilege, as well as excitement, that I share with you the missing blueprint for all things human. The human experience of reality, or in abbreviated form, the reality.